Okay, good everybody. Hope today it's fine. So my name is Victor. So welcome to this call. So today we're going to be going through the Cisco CyberOps. If we say Cisco security, or let's say Cisco certification. So Cisco have quite a lot of certifications, and this is an intermediate level certification. Let's go through. Okay, this is it here. So if you go to Cisco and go to the certification page, you'll see quite a lot of certifications that Cisco have. Actually, Cisco, I think sometime around 91, 92, thereabouts, they started with the CCIE. So over time, they've gone backwards to start with some of the very foundational certification. Cisco also used to have the ITN, is available on the channel. But this Cisco CyberOps is an intermediate level certification. So before you can do Cisco CyberOps, you should have done maybe the CCST, or you should have done the CCST, cybersecurity or networking. So you should be able to have some basic idea about what cybersecurity is about, what CIA is, that is confidentiality, integrity, availability, some very, very basics, what social engineering is all about. Some of those fundamentals of cybersecurity is important if you want to take the associate level courses in the Cisco certification track. So the Cisco CyberOps Associate is an associate level, an intermediate level Cisco certification. So the point is, what is the CyberOps course about? So is what Cisco calls the scope and sequence of the course. So the Cisco CyberOps course is geared towards persons that want to do SOC, that is persons that want to go into security operations center, that wants to learn how to manage incidents, understand different types of threats, understand the different types of operating systems, and how to protect those IT infrastructure. So it's intermediate level, so to say, but it's also an entry level into the professional track. So if you check the scope and sequence, which will be available, I will supply this document. It tells you what the curriculum is about. So if you want to be able to detect cybersecurity breaches and effectively respond to security incidents, if you want to work in the SOC, or if you want to do tier 1, right? So we'll look at those details later on. If you want to do tier 1 SOC, become a tier 1 SOC analyst, this Cisco CyberOps is going to cover most of those learnings you need to be able to understand. Now, the question is, what are the target audience? So anybody that is entry level, or that have gone through some basic entry level training certification, understand some basics about security, can actually take this course. And prerequisites before now, you should be able to use your PC, you should be able to use the internet, right? You should be able to understand how the computer works. So these are very fundamental. You should be able to understand 1 or 2 operating systems, either Windows, Mac, Linux, but not too important. You can actually catch it up as you go through the course. So this course is aligned to the 20021 CyberOps exam, right? And this course has 28 modules, right? So that's why we have about 28 slides. So you have the danger, you have network services, network communication devices, network security infrastructure. You have all that, about 28 of those modules. So they cover a very wide range of areas in security. So if you want to compare this certification with other vendors, so you can compare it with the EC Council CH, you can compare it with the CompTIA S+. So they have very, very similar kind of content that an entry-level cybersecurity analyst should be able to, those knowledge that a security analyst is supposed to be aware of or is supposed to know. So it covers 28 modules. Now, one of the things that is emphasized in the course is that you should be able to do critical thinking, you should be able to solve problems, And like I always tell students that being a security analyst is not just about learning most of the theories. That's important. It's not about learning all of the how to use the softwares. That is important. But most importantly is your ability to be able to solve problems. You're able to solve business problems. You're able to solve technical issues that's going to arise or that might result in security issues. How can you critically think about what these challenges are and actually solve them? So it's a combination of theory, hands-on practicals, concepts, tools, techniques, right? Tips, tricks. How do you put all of these things to actually solve problems, right? How can you apply these things to solve problems? Very, very important. So we're going to be using quite a lot of tools including Packet Tracer, because this is also a Cisco course. So that might come handy. And you're also going to have access to the Cisco labs. So for some of us that prepared for this course, like some 3 weeks ago, that did a short exam, you are going to be given access tonight. For those of us that are just joining the program, the Cybersecurity Internship Program, so we'll allow you from now to like Tuesday, Wednesday to like go through the theory of this course. That's to say, we'll allow you a few days to go through all of these slides. There are about 28 of them. And the theory for the courses, what you have on the channel, I will drop this link on the training group. So it's roughly about, if you want to go through the entire theory, you need roughly around 10 hours, right? Some students are going to say, oh, 10 hours is much for me to go through the theory of the course. Yeah, so you ask yourself, if 10 hours is much for you, so what about the person that sat down and actually went through or go through all of the content? So it's kind of faster, it's easier than if you had to go through the slides, each and every one of the slides yourself. So a very fast way to like cover this is to fire up the playlist. You can watch it while maybe you can just listen while driving, while in a public transport, or while getting busy, or do you want to know that you can just play it. If you take in 5 days, if you do 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night, thereabout. So in 4 or 5 days, you're able to go through this content and have like an overview of understanding of the course content. So it's based on this slide. So what we did was just record the entire session, because in the training, we're not going to be going through this, what's it called? We're not going to be going through these slides. What we're going to be concentrating on in the next few days is the hands-on labs, right? So all of this theory have been recorded already. So you just have to pick out time, get to the playlist and fire out the first video and go through most of the content so that we can spend the rest of the time in class to actually go through the, go through the hands-on lab. So if you take off like 1, 2, 3 videos here that are just like extra, the 28 modules, if you scroll through, 28 modules is around, call it 9 hours if you take off those stuff, right? So if you pick out 3 hours or 2.5 hours per day, in 3 or 4 days, you should be done with it, so that we can now concentrate on the labs. So that gives you opportunity to like understand some of the theory behind what we're trying to do. Like when we say the danger, what do we mean by the danger? It's because we have security threats. It's because we have good things in the hands of bad guys. That's why we come in, right? So, and we come in module 2, which we call fighters in the war against cybercrime. So it's because of the danger. That's why in module 2, we talk about the fighters. So who are the fighters? The fighters are you and I, that is going to help to stop most of these breaches, this information theft, to make sure that all of the elements of information security, so that is confidentiality, integrity, availability, non-repudiation, authenticity, all of those elements, they are intact. So in confidentiality, we're saying that we want to make sure that things are not just for everybody. If you have data on the system, on a website, on anywhere, you want to make sure that it's only who needs to see that thing needs to see it. So how do you ensure that? So you also go to see that it involves people, it involves processes, it involves tools and technologies. So if they ask you, the job of a security analyst is just to make sure that he can use the software, right, to protect, or he can use a process. So the process can be, okay, you need to do this before you do this. You need to do this before you do this. There's like a pattern. There's like a way things are done. It can be a policy. It can be a procedure, right? So or it can be people, right? Humans. So people need to be trained on how to do stuff. So that's why we look at a module 2, where we look at fighters in the war against crime. So you also understand some of the skills that you and we need to have to be able to ensure that we reduce cyber crime. Then in module 3, we start learning operating systems, because now you want to protect IT infrastructure. Any IT infrastructure you're going to try to protect is going to be based on a certain or a particular type of operating system. Either it's going to be on a Windows operating system, a Mac, an iOS, what's it called again, an Android. But the two most critical operating systems that is considered in this course is the Windows and the Linux. So, because if you understand the underlying principles behind this operating system, then you can actually now be able to use the operating system features to protect your data. Now, Windows, for instance, or Mac, they will typically have something like a firewall. They will have something like maybe an anti-theft. They will have something like a way to like protect data. You will have something like antivirus. You have something like all of these features that comes with the operating system. We need to understand them. So you cannot say, oh, I'm a tier 1 security analyst, and you don't know how to use Windows or a Mac or any of this or Linux operating system. It's very, very fundamental. So that's why this module 3 and 4 covers, what's it called? Covers the Windows operating system and the Linux operating system. Then when you get to module 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you see that is where networking comes in. So if you have taken a networking course before now, awesome. If you're not taking a networking course before now, you see you have networking, because everything you're going to do in security is going to have something to do with networking. So that's why you can't take a security course without touching networking, because everything you're going to do is going to be hinged on a network. So a network is 2 or more devices or computers or items connected to share resource. So that resource can be internet, it can be files, it can be data, it can be software, it can be anything, right? So in the module 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you start learning about networking. Even in 11, 12, you're still talking about networking. Then in module 13, we start talking about attackers and their tools. That's where you now start seeing quite a lot of softwares, quite a lot of applications that hackers can use, that you can use to like actually protect yourself and your IT system. So you see them categorized in that module 13. Then module 14 looks at what are the kind of threats that you are going to be seeing. Is it software? Is it in your network? Is it in your application? Is it in your cloud? What are those common threats? And what are those common types of attack? That's what you see in module 14. In 15, you start talking about how do I monitor my network? On and on and on like that. So you have most of these things explained in the theory behind the course. Okay, so if you go back to the overview of the course, this PDF, so you're going to see what should you be able to know at the end of this course. So you see that upon completion of the CyberOps Associate version 1, students will be able to perform the following tasks. So at the end of this course, there are things that you should be able to know how to do, like you should be able to install a virtual machine. Now, good enough, this course have guided labs. We have about 40 something thereabouts of the labs. About 30 something are very, very handy. Now, you should be able to understand what is a virtual machine. So a virtual machine is typically a machine, a software that helps to like, helps us to, what's the right word now? To help us like mimic a kind of environment. So that's why you call it virtual. So it's not real. Like the system I'm running on is a Windows 10 or Windows 11 PC. So what about I don't have a Windows 11 PC? Can I be able to still run an 11 PC environment? So if you have a software that can help you mimic that kind of environment, awesome, right? Or I don't have a Mac, or I don't have Linux. This is not a Linux operating system. So, but how do I have that kind of environment to play around, to implement, to analyze cybersecurity threats and events? So that's what you learn. That is why your first lab is about you setting up your hacking environment. Then you're going to learn about the role of the cybersecurity operations analyst in an enterprise. So this is a SOC course, but it's heavy on networking. It's heavy on quite a lot of tools that you should be able to know if you want to work in a SOC environment. Later on, at the end of the internship, we're going to consider some SOC tools that are specific in a SOC center, or some SIEM softwares. SIEM, I mean SIEM, that is Security Information and Event Management Tool. So we're going to look at some of them. So some of them we're going to find in this course. So we're going to walk them through little by little. Then you should be able to understand and explore the Windows environment, the Linux environment. You should be able to understand network protocols and services. So you see, networking comes handy here now. Then you should be able to understand the various types of attacks. You should be able to classify them. Because if something happens now, one way to solve the problem is first understanding what kind of attack do we have? How do we classify this attack? Then what tool, what technique, what tips or tricks can we use to mitigate this attack? Now you see that sometimes there are some issues you have within your enterprise. A tool is not going to solve the problem. Maybe a technique can solve it, right? Or just a little tip, how to do this, how not to do this stuff like this, do it this way, don't do it this way, can be a solution, not necessarily a tool. At times, you might need a tool, a software to actually be implemented so that you can mitigate such kind of attack. Take, for instance, if you always have malware, it can also be a combination of all of this. You might need to install an anti-malware. Then a technique can also be that you might need to, or some tips might be that you might need to make people be aware. You might need to train people to be able to understand what to click, what not to click, how not to fall into social engineering, so that they don't do the things they're not supposed to do and the rest. So, but you should be able to classify these different types of attacks and how to make sure that they don't occur. Then we start using some kind of monitoring tools against network on attacks that might be prone on our network. Then explain how to prevent malicious access. So you see in the heads up to what you should know at the end of the course, you see that there are some things you should be able to do, so install. There are some things you should be able to explain. There are some things you should be able to classify. There are some things that you should be able to evaluate. So there are different levels of knowledge. So the difference between just knowing how to define something and explain it out, there's difference between that and you being able to implement something. Difference also between you being able to analyze something. Tell somebody, okay, what's your favorite soup? Soup ABCD. So how do I cook it? Explaining it is one thing. Analyzing it is another thing. Cooking it, doing it is separate from another thing. So you have different level of knowledge that is expected of you at the end of this course. So if you want to take this course, you should have minimum. Here, Cisco says Pentium 4, but I will advocate for at least a Core i3. I will also advocate for at least a minimum RAM of 8 gig and above. You should also have at least 40 gig. I mean free. So you can go up to 50 gig or 100 gig, that's fine. Now, give or take, your system processor should be at least 2 gigahertz. So how do I know that? I'll just press, I go to this, I go to I can just press Windows E on my Windows. I just tap here and click on properties. So getting your properties on your system might be slightly different. So here I have at least 480 gig free in terms of space, right? So you just see how to get your system properties. So here I'm running a 2.5 gigahertz. I'm running a Core i3. I have 20 gig RAM. So I'm running a Windows 11. So even if you're running Windows 7, Windows 10, yes, those are pretty old operating systems. But 7, 10, 11 is fine, or a Mac, it's fine. But at least you should be up to at least 2 gigahertz, right? At least up to 2 gigahertz. You should have at least 8 gig RAM. If you can make it bigger, maybe up to 16 or 32, that's fine. But 8 gig RAM minimum, right? So that you're able to run most of the softwares that you're going to need. So that's what you need minimum for this course. Then for the softwares, you should have Oracle VirtualBox. So the very first lab for this course is for you to be able to install most of these applications. So you have CyberOps Workstation, and you also have Security Onion. Those are the two workstations or two virtual machines we're going to be using in the course, right? Now, in terms of the course outline, so that is what I just explained. Now I'll drop this sheet for you guys. You see, the first one is the danger. So why do we get attacked? Some of the features, threat actors, war stories, examples. And I'll normally tell students that if you want to read tech news, you can look at cybersecurity events. You can look at cybersecurity attack, what happened, how they happened, why they happened, how those things were mitigated, or how those threats were mitigated. That's the kind of things you should be looking at when you look at cyber threats or cyber incidents. So this is each of the modules and what is inside of it. So you can scan through this document, right? That tells you what you're going to be learning at the end of the day. I'm going to drop this in the training group. Then I said this is the explanation. Then this is the labs. Now let me explain the labs. Okay, I will pick up questions then before we move over to the labs. Okay, so we've just gone through what the curriculum is about. So the curriculum is this. You have this 10-page document that explains everything that is expected of us for the training. Then we also have the slide explainer. So it's good you go through this stuff, dedicate like 3 good days to like finish up this content, make your notes. Then where we are going to focus on is on the labs. So if you check, we have about let me see if I can open this. So we have about 47 labs. So if you watch the lab, you're going to see that there's a way the lab is being structured. Anytime you see 106, so that means that this is a lab in module 1. That is the danger. 115, 116, 116. Okay, I think this is a repetition, or this is the stuff and this is the answer. You have 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 4. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 labs, or rather 5 labs. I said a repetition of the answer. 5 labs in module 1. So for chapter 1, you have 5 labs. For chapter 2, becoming a defender, I think this one just has to do with different certifications that you need to be aware of if you want to become a security analyst, right? So I think this is just a research about what are the skills you need to have, what are the different certifications by different vendors and the rest. Then you have module 3, which is Linux, I think. Windows. That is 3.03, 3.211, 3.310. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 labs for module 3, that is Windows. So here you are learning about identifying running processes. Like for your operating system now, for your Windows computer, how do you know what is happening on the system? So some of these things have something to do with digital forensics. So because if a malware, for instance, or a software is running on the background, or maybe slowing down your system, or is a backdoor, how do you know? How do you know what is actually happening under the hood? So that's where this lab comes in. Same thing with processes, threads, handles, Windows registry. Then create a user account. This one is very simple stuff. How do you create an account on your Windows computer? Then using PowerShell, right? Then task manager, very similar to lab 303. Then you have monitor and manage system resources, right? So all of these labs have to do with the Windows environment. Then module 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you also have 5 labs for module 4, which is Linux. So you see the way it is structured. So for any of the labs, the number tells the module. I don't know if that's clear. Okay, so that's the structure of the lab. So now the way the labs are sorted out, it's like I think this module, the lab 115, is the very first lab that we should go through, which is installing the virtual machines, right? So how do you set up your virtual machines? And the beauty about the guided lab is that everything you need to do, it's well spelled out. So it's done in such a way that you can actually take these labs or take care of these labs yourself. Now, let me show you the structure of some of these labs, just a moment, how we're going to go through it. Now, if you see, you have, if I was to take the labs normally in a physical class, I would take it like in 4 or 5 days. So this is normally going to be my day 1, right? So my day 1 have some of these basics, right? They are all theoretical in the sense that it's just conceptual learnings. Top hackers show how it is done. So there's a YouTube video you need to watch, see how some hackers do some of the things they do, some different types of attack. You journal it, you write it down. Installing virtual machines. How do you download the Oracle VirtualBox? How do you download the Security Onion? How do you download the CyberOps workstation? How do you implement it? Then case studies. What are some of the things that have happened in the past and what can you learn from it? Then details of an attack. How does an attack happen? If we just open anyone, so you see the clear-cut instruction of each of the lab. Now, so what I've done is that I've given you the instructor version. So the instructor version is what you have currently. So for each of the lab, you're going to see that they have an objective. So you have 47 labs for this program, for this CyberOps program. Each of them have objectives. Now, for instance, this one is research and analyze IoT application vulnerability. So what is IoT? So IoT is Internet of Things. What is Internet of Things? So you have appliances, devices, gadgets, things like cars, cameras, AC, doors, lights, all of these items that you can control, you can connect, you can implement, you can use over the internet. Take, for instance, you have cameras in your house or in the office, and you can remote view what is happening at home, or you have a door that have a sensor that you can remote control. It's connected to your network. You can open while you're not at home, or you have a light that you can switch on with an app, with a mobile phone. All of those kind of things, that's what you call IoT. So, but the problem is that some of these IoT devices can have some vulnerabilities because most of them, you need an application to run them. So you see some background here. So you need to settle down and read this background, right? For instance, for this particular lab, you only need a mobile device with internet access. That's all, right? So you don't need any software. So each of the labs is going to tell you what you need to be able to do the lab. Then it will tell you part 1, it will have set of instructions. Like now, these are links, right? So you need to click on each of them, you open it, then you see from your research, from reading these 3 links, choose an IoT vulnerability and answer the following question. So what's a vulnerability? So in industry, device hijacking. So what can happen in industry? What can happen in the government? So you have denial of service. What can happen in healthcare? You have ransomware, like the WannaCry malware. Then you have energy systems. Some countries, their energy system is can be controlled over the internet. It's not manually driven. Then what can happen? Data breach. People can steal the data and all of that. So same thing, you have who might exploit it. So for each of those links that you click on, you will see the details there. So you are supposed to fill this and send to an email address so that we can vet them and maybe we can review them in class. So why does the vulnerability exist? So you have the space to give your answers. What could be done to limit the vulnerability you have? So all of that information is presented in just these 3 links, right? So that's for that. If you check, take for instance, installing the virtual machine, it will tell you, okay, what do you want to do in this lab? You want to install the virtual machine. What are the objectives? You want to actually prepare your computer for virtualization. So virtualization is a means of making your system to be able to run other operating system or other environments in a controlled manner. That's what you call virtualization. And that's why it's coming from the word virtual, like make believe, like a test environment. So you see some background. So a student will be asking the question like, what is this lab about? It's already written and explained. Then another thing is, what do you need, your required resources? So you see it's well spelled out. Instructions, you see part 1, you see part 2, how to download the virtual box, how to download the virtual machine, look at the links, how do you import it, right? But there's already a lab that have been done to explain how this is done. So the idea about the lab session is that you already have some of the labs that is on YouTube already done. So I think some of these 14 items, there are about 14 to 18 labs that have already been done. That is this ones you see here, right? All of this. So there's a description in the training group where we atomized each of these videos, what lab is in each of them, right? So if you want to go through them, you can go through them. So that what we're going to be focusing on the live training is going to be the labs that are not online, right? So that we don't repeat ourselves. Okay, so what we're going to do is that before the next series of classes on Tuesday, maybe Tuesday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you can start walking through the labs you have on the channel already. Then so that we can, within the week, we can see if we can trash out about 7 to 10 labs with the ones you have already, then the ones you're going to run privately, or I can assign some for you to work on in the group, so that we can be done with at least 70% of the entire labs, and so that we can move on to web programming.